Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report. I'm Jane Belau. Our guest this week is Shaun Palmer, who is a representative from District 5 on the City Council.
On the Rochester City Council. Thank you, Jane, for having me on the show.
Well, welcome back.
Yes.
Now, what's happening with the City Council? You're getting some visibility.
Well, we kind of are. We had a sad meeting on Monday. It was, we had a censure of one of our members, and it was something that had came up. I didn't know we were going to do it. Mr. Keene and Ms. Carlson, our president, put it together after some disturbing information that got to them and some interactions, kind of from a meeting we had at the Plumber House a week before. It was an open meeting that we had. It was an educational meeting, and it met all the open meeting laws. And after that meeting, there were some words that were said and things that were done, and so they brought a censure for Ms. Dennis, who's our representative for the 6th Ward. Again, I didn't know anything about it. All the city council members, except for Mr. Wall, voted for it. Mr. Wall abstained since he's our new member, and Mr. Bransford was not there, but I've talked with Mark and he supports it also. And of course, then Ms. Dennis voted not for the censure. You know, again, it was an educational meeting, and we did meet the open meeting laws, and it was open to the public, and we had the public there. You know, and some people said we should have taped it, but we don't tape our education meetings. And so it's a sad event for Rochester, and we hope that behaviors change and we can all work together again.
So what's the outcome?
Well, the outcome is that on the actual censure that they gave to her on a piece of paper, one of the things that she cannot do anymore is meet with the staff in private, that they have to do a Zoom meeting. But she will attend all our city council meetings, and she has all her responsibilities and obligations still as a city council member. And hopefully her behavior changes and improves.
Okay, because it sounded like it was just sort of a dispute, a personality problem, and it's okay. All right.
Well, but, you know, Mr. Keene has worked hard with Ms. Daniels and Dennis or Ms. Dennis and worked really hard at helping her navigate city council and talking to her about her behaviors, and I think he finally figured out that there was really nothing more that they could do, and he brought this to us, and I supported that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Biggest issue besides that one?
You know, housing is huge for us in Rochester, and I have my information here, and I'm on the Housing Coalition, and we're looking at single-family owner-occupied homes. In entry level, basically, is what you could call it. We're trying to get homes built in that entry level, $250,000 and below cost. And Rochester is working with Olmsted County, and we work well together. And we're trying to come up with some programs that we can do. And so the City Council had a vote, 7-0 vote, to ask the staff to come back with some incentives for our developers to say, what would it take for us to get more of these homes built? And right now, we had 200 homes built, single-family homes built last year. The Maxfield study says that we need to have 450 houses built, so we're missing that entry level. Why that's important to somebody who lives in Rochester already is that, you know, if you want somebody to be, you know, greeting you at the restaurant, you want somebody working in the police department or the fire department, they have to have a home to stay in, and you have to have one that they can afford. The other side of this is that we have about 30% of the need is for senior housing, and you know, people who live in Sunset Terrace, Country Club Manor, Elton Hills, those houses built in the 60s, you know, they have stairs, they have their washing machine downstairs, they have a furnace downstairs. If they can move into a slab on grade new house and move over there without having to take out more mortgage or taking out a mortgage, that would be beneficial to them. We see a need for that. And that would then open up that home for a new family to be in that neighborhood. we're really fortunate in Rochester. We have the Rochester Area Foundation, and they have a land trust, and some of this will be put in the land trust. And we started that land trust, I say we, the city, it was Rochester Area Foundation, but we started that back in the early 90s. And Al Tutland was a big pusher for that, for the Rochester Area Foundation. That's worked out good with them. Olmsted County and the city of Rochester and Mayo Clinic have the Housing Coalition, which is a large amount of money that we've contributed, that we're trying to help out housing in Rochester. Now, this isn't to say that we don't need rentals. We still need rentals. There's still a demand for that. I get asked all the time, you know, we're building all these motel, or excuse me, all these apartments. Are we overbuilt? And I always say, you know, the economics tells you, if you see a sign outside that says 2 months for free, that tells you that we've overbuilt our apartments. We've not overbuilt. There's a large need for people who want to live in Rochester for 2 to 3 years, and they don't really want to invest in a home. But we do have people who want to invest in a home, and that home ownership is a big, big part of it. We have another study that just came out, was the BIPOC community in housing, and that's a minority population. And BIPOC is about a 22% home ownership versus about 77% for European descendants. And if you look at that huge discrepancy, you know, they're not building wealth. And most people's biggest wealth gainer for them is a single family home that they own. So we're looking at programs, working with other nonprofits to see how we can get that 22% up to 77% and tell people why it's important to own a home, you know, and also how you can build wealth with it. So that's probably the biggest emphasis that I have right now. The city of Rochester also is starting our budget program for 2024. We had an educational meeting. We'll have about every 6 weeks, we'll have a meeting on our budget and where's our priorities and how do we do it. So by the time you get to October, you know what our tax rate's going to be, you know what our services are going to be, and where we're going to be.
The building code that we are adopting should help homeownership, right?
Yes, and it's the zoning ordinance, and it's now called the Unified Development Code. And one of the things that I push for and is in there is that we have smaller lots. So we used to have a minimum size of 6,000 square foot lot. We now went down to 3,000 square foot lot, and we also took out some of our side yards and front yards. It doesn't mean you have to build a 3,000 square foot lot, but it's available on that price range that can help out keep the cost of building in Rochester within the means of most people.
Are the institutions helping you with financing for these homes?
There is, and some of the ideas would be, in the years past, Rochester has provided TIF financing, tax increment financing for residential homes. We did at least 5 different projects in Rochester. And that just takes the tax dollars that would have been generated, giving that to the developer to help out with the prices on things. On that entry-level homes, we're looking at doing bonding for street and sewer and roads and water, and to help that development. Instead of paying for it at day one when you sign for your mortgage, that you take that over a 15-year period of time and let that homeowner pay for it over 15 years.
Now, if you were to put a number on single-family homes that are affordable, what is our need?
Our need is huge. Right now, the Maxwell study will say to you that we need to build 450 single-family homes every single year. We've gone down to 200. That was high. Back in 1979, when we had the energy crisis, we had 21% interest rates. We still built 180 houses. When IBM made their announcement that they're laying people off, we still had 180 houses. When the 2008 recession hit us, when the housing market, we still had 180 houses. And so there's a huge pent-up demand for these houses, and I think that that's going to be an area that we really have to concentrate. And you know, the average home in Rochester sale price is about $350,000. Albert Lee, it's $150,000. People want to live in Rochester. If you have a home for $250,000 on the open market right now, that sits on the market at days on average is 20. We hear stories about people whose houses are multiple offers and sold within a day. So there's that $250,000 and below market is huge. I hear from people who are third, fourth generation people in Rochester whose kids can't afford to live in Rochester, and that's sad, and we need that. Again, we need rentals. Renters are great, wonderful citizens, but that single-family dwelling really does build wealth for people, and I think that's a good investment for them.
Even now?
I'm not a financial advisor, but yes, even now it's a good one. I laugh because in 1989 I came back to Rochester. I grew up and was raised in Rochester, left in 78 after I graduated from RCC here, and then came back, and I had a 10% mortgage on my house, and they were just amazed because mortgage rates had gone up to 19%. And so we were at 10% for a long time. We went down, I think the low of the market 3 years ago or 2 years ago was about 3%. We're now at 6%. And so there's some market that will change in that, but 6% interest rate on a home is not a bad interest rate. It just historically it's if you look back 3 years, you go, oh my gosh, it doubled. And it does have an effect. But lumber prices have come down. But the city of Rochester has control over certain things that we can do. And again, some of the items I just described, but the other item that we can do is say if you're building the entry-level home, we're going to try to fast-track your applications. If you're building this particular home, we won't do a plan review. It's already been done. We'll just issue it right away. Because time is money. And in the construction industry, I might miss a meeting, by a month or 6 weeks, for the city council, but that might put me into another season. And most of the time in the development business, the end of October, Halloween is about the last they can turn dirt, and they can't turn dirt again until road restrictions leave, and that's usually the 1st of May. So, missing that time is big.
Are the families that are waiting for single-family homes, are they ones with small children in school? Are they ones that have 2 incomes? What's this profile?
The answer to that is yes. It's all over this place. But where it's important for Rochester, and if you can follow this, for most human nature is, if I live in Rochester and I own a single-family dwelling and I start my family and then I send my kids to the Rochester public school system, I'm going to stay in there. So when I move up to my next house or my 3rd house, I'm going to keep my kids in the Rochester School District. Now, if I'm in an outlying area around Olmsted County, and I'm in Casson, for example, and I start my family and I start in the Casson School District, I am not likely to go to change them out of the Casson School District. And there's options all throughout southern Minnesota where you can, but I think it's important for the city of Rochester to have that entry-level, middle-class home. And we have a subdivision being built, $1 million houses behind the Stone Barn restaurant. Great to have that. It's great to have development there, but not many people can afford $1 million house. And you do want to have people greet you again at the Mayo Clinic. You do want to have restaurant people. You do want to have police and fire department people who can afford to live in your city, and school teachers to afford to live in your city.
If you had advice for the city, your committee, what would it be?
Really concentrate on this entry level. And I believe that everybody, all the studies that we have say that. And so it's not just Palmer saying that, it's our studies have pointed that. And I really am hopeful that we'll get it done. And I really think Rochester, Olmsted County are really poised to do good, because we have a lot of things, if you read studies or these are the recommendations you should do. We already have a coalition, which a lot of people don't, and that's a wonderful thing to do. We already have a land trust. We already have the Rochester Area Foundation in there. We already have developers who can do it. We also have areas that we can develop that are in the area. We have sewer in northeast and northwest Rochester that's available. We have infrastructure sitting there waiting for homes to be built. So it's not like we're going to be taking infrastructure and say, oh, we need to have more of this or more of that. But it's important for that to happen. Our prices in Rochester, and I have a form that I always like to use, and it's construction gaps. And this is from the Maxfield study, but the price between a medium house in the Twin Cities in Rochester, the difference was 41%. So if you have a couple who deciding one works in the cities and one works in Rochester, at 41%, we're going to make that decision to live in Rochester, and you can drive up to the cities. you did that when you were a younger person. Right now we're at 15%, and some would argue we're at 10% difference between the Twin Cities. So now at 10%, where's that talent go? Do you say, I'm going to live in the cities, and then you can travel to Rochester and take that payroll and take that talent out of Rochester? So that to me is a worry, because you do want Rochester to keep growing. You know, Duluth grew very little in their 2020 census. We grew quite a bit. A growing city is a good city, and we need to keep growing.
Wow. I mean, this is a multifaceted problem, right? But you are dealing with home ownership and the problems that people face in getting financing and then affording the house.
Well, and the nice thing is that, and if you think about this, we have a lot of nonprofits, and we're lucky in southern Minnesota to have nonprofits willing to help people, and we do have some down payment programs out there. But this is a supply issue, and so there are down payment programs out there. But from a BIPOC community, if you didn't grow up in the United States, and mom and dad didn't have a house, and grandpa and grandma didn't have a house, you really don't know about a house. And so if we can help them and mentor them and say, hey, this is why you should be owning a house instead of living in an apartment. You know, people from New York City, a lot of them never owned a house. And you know, here in the Midwest, you can own a home. And that's a wonderful thing. But there's people willing to help out. How do you own a house? How do you do this? And part of it kind of smiled because of the BIPOC report that we got. You know, they said, well, they're worried that they're going to get ripped off from their builder. They're worried that if they call to get their furnace fixed, they're going to get ripped off, or the roof is going to be replaced. How do they trust that person? You and I have that same problem. You know, I don't as much because I'm in the construction industry, but most average people don't know, you know, if they're calling their mechanic to fix their furnace, are they getting a fair deal? And so that fear is out for everybody. But when you don't have that history in your family of watching mom and dad and seeing that, and why is it a good thing? You know, I mean, I've owned probably 9 houses in Rochester. And you know, each house you move up, you do something different. But I'm unique because I am in that industry and I enjoy doing that.
Well, thank you for bringing us a new perspective, because we hear a lot about affordable housing and housing for rent. But we don't hear a lot about housing to buy.
Yep, and again, the Maxwell study, we've done 2 of them, have pointed that direction. And we're pretty comfortable with our apartments, where we're at. And we do have workforce housing, and you know, people see, well, it's Section 8 housing. Well, Section 8 is a section of housing vouchers, but most of these high-rises, or the 3-story buildings that they're building, are tax-credited buildings. They keep the AMI, the rate of what you pay at 30% of what you earn. So you have to have a job to live in there. It's not free rent. You're not having people not working. So it's workforce housing that we see, and it's badly needed. But we also badly need to have that single family.
Downtown.
Yep.
And what can be done about rejuvenating our downtown as fast as we're opening new facilities, the others are closing? What do we do?
Well, you know, and I will say, in the facts will bear out, is that our downtown is doing better than most downtowns. I mean, COVID really hit downtowns hard. And one of the factors that I look at is our parking. Where's our parking ramps at? We're about 90% pre-COVID in our parking ramps. So that's a good thing. You know, and it's easy for some people to throw stones, but the Well just opened downtown, and I don't know if you've eaten there, but it's a great place to eat. We've had 4 or 5 different restaurants start opening. We've had restaurants close, but we had Newt's close. In 6 weeks later, we have a new business going to go in there. And so there is going to be some change, and it's been extremely hard for small business people to survive what's going on. And now what we're hitting is there's no longer government money to help out with rent, and no money this, and so that's coming to rest. Now, the same token, Rochester's always had a lot of employees from the Mayo Clinic that have been downtown, and they have changed their way of doing business, and some of it, and they need to. And some of it is that people are living not in Rochester, or they're not coming downtown. And how do we attract them to the downtown? You know, the number one thing in the facts will bear this out is we have a very safe downtown. And safety is an important issue for people. So if you're a patient coming to Rochester and you're walking downtown, are you safe or aren't you safe? And I would say that we are safe, and we're safer than most cities. And so that's something that the city can do. Can the city do tax abatement? Not really. It's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Do we have investments in Rochester that has really increased the property values of Rochester? Well, increased property values is a good thing. You know, and I knock on doors with single-family houses and talk to people, and they'll say, my taxes went up. Yeah, but the value of your home went up 20%. Hence, your taxes go up. You know, and so you want your house to go up in value. The sad part of it is, to get that, I have to sell it. And we don't want people leaving Rochester. So downtown's I'm great faith. I mean, any other city in the world would love to have the Mayo Clinic in downtown. And you look at the investments that are going on downtown, and it's a very clean city. It really is. And there'll be some people who'll kick us, you know, and yep, there's always those people that'll do that. But I really believe Rochester is going to be, you know, I always say it's a great city, but we want to be better. I use the quote from James J. Hill, you know, great cities don't happen by accident. And Rochester is grown not by accident. And there are things that we need to fix. I want to be clear on that you know, we can get better.
It's such a conundrum, though, because the pandemic, who knew the pandemic would be such a lasting impact on a downtown city?
Yeah, and you know, there's some benefit to Rochester from it, because the simple fact that our employer did the city of Rochester survived it. It was not easy, you know, and we still have people who are quite upset about how it was handled. But that's a small minority of people who are unhappy. But we also can attract people who don't want to live in Chicago and New York and other areas, because they see our medical care. Olmsted County is the best health department in the United States, and they were prepared. Our fire department was prepared for this pandemic. And that took a lot of investment on Rochester to be prepared for something like this. And we reacted very well.
Yeah. The issue, one of the issues is the one of employment and where people are working now. If they're working more at home, or if they're working in their usual spaces, what are you seeing?
Well, it's interesting. I read a lot of different articles. I read 5 newspapers a day. But what they're saying to us is that a lot of these employers nationwide have got employees who are used to being out at home and very productive. And when they're being productive, that's good for them, and it's hard for them to come back into an office. And was that productive in an office? Now, some people will do a hybrid system where I'm in the office once in a while, and I'm at home most of the time, and that's productive for people. So I believe, and I've read this, is that the pandemic really just moved things forward 20 years quickly, and we adjusted to that, and we did that. And you know, I had a house up in Lake Country, and I could do a meeting there and be effective and attend things. I was in Florida during the pandemic and on vacation, and I was able to attend meetings, and you know, was that a good thing? Otherwise, I might have missed that meeting.
All right. How about parking and transportation?
Parking has always been a problem in Rochester in 1950s, and you look back at the history, and one of the number of problems was parking. But parking has improved, and we do have the bus rapid transit, the BRT system, that we earned federal funding grant on that. That will help out parking quite a bit. That is basically rapid buses that will leave the west parking lot at Mayo Clinic, drive into Rochester every 10 minutes, go by the Mayo Clinic, go to the Fullerton lot, turn around and come back. They've decided to go fare free, so you walk on the bus, you walk off the bus, you get to where you need to be, stop at St. Mary's. It'll be open to the public, and I think that will be a great asset to Rochester. And Mayo Clinic has decided to fund 95% of that. So the ongoing operational costs will be handled by Mayo and for their employees and us.
Parks and Recreation.
That's
And the city and the county and its relationship with each other.
I think that the relationship with the Olmsted County and the city is very good. And we have 4 new commissioners, and the 4 that left, I had a good relationship with, and we have a good relationship with the new people. I think more importantly, our city administrator and the county administrator get along quite well. And I think that that's a good thing. Not that they didn't in the past, but it's good that they do. And I have a good relationship with both. And I think Olmsted County and Rochester need to work better together, but we're better than we have ever been, I believe.
That's good.
Yes, it's very good for the taxpayers.
That's very good.
And you know, we're working good with the school district. And we had a meeting with the superintendent, Mark Bransford and I did, the other council person. And we're going to come back with a proposal to see how we can use gyms and libraries in the pool at Willow Creek, and have the city pay for it and have that open, and that'd be a pilot program. And they're very interested in doing that. We have our bonding bill coming up. They're interested in how do we do the park and rec or the rec center, or we're going to build a new sports facility. We're out right now asking people what they see as a need. We have a consultants who we were paying to find out what is the needs in Rochester for a new sports facility, and I think it's a $70 million ask.
Okay, there was a big hearing, I think, last night on an annexation proposal, and the big issue is transportation and what the country roads can stand, and how the city would pay for those. What do you see as the biggest problem facing this city right now?
I think how you access the resources that we have as a taxpayer, sewer and water and roads. You know, up north of town, I think it's 65th Street was a township road, 2-lane road, and we just completely rebuilt that. Dakota School was built out there, so we rebuilt that road, and that will incentivize some construction, some building. There's an interchange that the county is proposing or would like to get put in just west of Rochester. There's been some accidents there. That will open up some of that area and we're expanding our sewer system into that area. So to me, and I'm a positive person, but I think Rochester is going to be even better than it was, and work on our problems.
Okay, for someone interested in service on the city council, what's the biggest requirements you have for someone who would like to be on the council?
Listening. You need to be able to listen. You need to be able to reach out to people and find out from different opinions. I was a Camp Olson YMCA board member. I was the president. And there's so much that I learned from that experience that I've now taken to city council. Get on a board, get on a volunteer board, get on a city council or city committee. You know, the mayor is always asking for people to apply and get that experience of how do you deal with other people and listen to other opinions. You know, I was fortunate, I ran quite a bit, and I enjoy being on the city council. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. We just finished our election at 72.5%. I was the youngest person sworn in at our January meeting. Of the 4 of us who got sworn in, I was the youngest one, and I'm 63, so.
Shaun Palmer, it is always such a pleasure to talk with you, and we hope you'll be back soon.
I'll come back anytime you ask me.
All right, we like that. Thank you for your interest in Rochester, the city government, the county, the state, the nation, and the world. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel. Have a very good week and a very good night.